This is Lewis Hart for Boxing Social in association with Empire Fight Store and William Hill. Delighted today to be joined once again with Mr. Dev Sahni. Always a pleasure talking to you. One thing to start, only one thing to say: chat shit, get zhanged.
He said it. I've been like wanting him to say it all week. I've been tweeting people. People are saying, has he done it yet? Tonight, I can confirm. Zhilei Zhang said, "Chat shit, get zanged." It's on a Queensbury video, and it will be released shortly. Let's get him to say it a few times. I don't think he actually knows the weight of what he said, but he said it, and so I'm happy with that. You happy with that?
I'm happy with it. I would be a bit confused if Zhilei Zhang was in touch with a bit of the British banter. So it's good to see that when he's come over to the UK, he knows what we're talking about. He's aware of the banter that we have.
Yeah, he's aware. But look, for me, that's even more valuable than like a 20-minute sit down talking about his career. Just get him to say that down the camera, and people love it. So yeah, I'm hyped about that.
Absolutely, this is a fight we've been waiting for ages. I feel like one thing, the promotion for this fight's been brilliant. I've seen it constantly on the Twitter page, constantly on the Queensbury Twitter page. For weeks, we've been waiting for Joyce versus Zhang. And as you said it, a fact, the best scheduled fight this year, it's finally here, April 15th. Copper Box Arena, they're going to throw down a big fight between two people that can definitely bang.
It's two giants, and it's a gigantic fight. And look, I said it's the best heavyweight fight scheduled this year, and people are like, oh, yeah, but there ain't any others, mate. What other ones? There's no other ones actually scheduled, unfortunately. But it's a great fight. It's the WBO Interim heavyweight title. The winner becomes mandatory. Zhilei Zhang thinks he should already be the mandatory. He thinks he beat Filip Hrgović. I agree with him. Many agree with him, but he's got another chance to become a mandatory challenger on Saturday against Joe Joyce. Yeah, the problem is he's got Joe Joyce in front of him, and he's an absolute juggernaut. I don't know how Joe Joyce is going to approach this fight, because the last time he really respected someone's power, it was Daniel Dubois, and he didn't just walk forward and juggernaut him. It was a different sort of juggernaut. It was a juggernaut that used his jab. It was a juggernaut that got out of the way. I can't remember Daniel Dubois landing flush that night. How often do you say that coming out of a Joe Joyce? I don't actually remember someone landing flush.
If he did, Joyce just kept walking forward.
Yeah, he just ate it, which is what he does. I think Zhang punches very hard. There's a lot of great knockouts out there. Just look for them. He's laying people to waste. I don't know if he can afford Joe Joyce to just take his best shot and rely on his chin. But we'll see. Every time I watch Joe Joyce fight, it's like this. I remember the Takam fight. I was like, what is going on here? Is he about to get chinned by Takam? But thankfully he didn't. And I'm really looking forward to this fight. It's just a good fight.
Absolutely, you just mentioned it there, and we'll get onto sort of the interim bit in a minute, but you just mentioned it there about watching a Joe Joyce fight, and I remember that Parker fight. I think Parker even said, and I agree with him, you're wincing in pain watching it, two people are just fucking swinging at each other, going mental. They're so brutal, but do you know what? That's what gets the eyes, and that's what gets everybody watching it.
Yeah, look, he's becoming a must-watch fighter. I think that's happened now. He's at that. He's at that top table. He's in that conversation. He's in everyone's top five now. I don't see any top fives out there which omit Joe Joyce, and that's he's also developing quite the resume. Anthony Joshua's obviously got a great resume. Tyson Fury's got some great wins as well. Outside of those guys, you look at the people that he's fought and beaten. Joe Parker, Daniel Dubois, I feel like idiot now, Dominic Brazil, no. But, yeah, do you know what I mean? Like, it's Joe Parker, it's Daniel Dubois, it's Carlos Takam, who's just had a great win over Tony Yoka. On his debut, he took on Ian Lewison. There's a former world champion in Bermain Stavern. He gets through them. He's a juggernaut. And I'm looking forward to this next one. If he adds Zhilei Zhang to his resume, that's a hell of a resume, and that is I think he starts going from top 5. People start talking about top 3, top 4. He's already my number 2.
Absolutely, yeah. And you just said that about top 5 and top 3. I feel like most people do say if it isn't Usyk, if it isn't Fury, their number 3 already is Joe Joyce, and the more fights he has, the more he solidifies himself being as that top 3.
Wally Downs from The Sun, a wonderful reporter, just tried to get me with, when you do that thing and you put it down there, didn't get me, didn't look. The question, I assume, was about how brilliant Joe Joyce is. The top 3. Look, he's at that top table now. You talk about Fury, Usyk tend to be everyone's 1 and 2. And then it's about, where is AJ now? Where is Wilder now? Joe Joyce has to be in there. And for me, I think he's the biggest threat to Tyson Fury. I've said this for a while, because Tyson Fury relies on... He's normally bigger than everyone. He's only a bit bigger than Joe Joyce. He's normally got a great tank. Joe Joyce has got a great tank as well. He is the guy. He's the problem that could still be there at the end of the 12th round against Tyson Fury. And I'd love to see that fight.
I was just going to say, I asked Joe Joyce the question, and I'm thinking, you obviously not Joe Joyce, you can't answer that question for Joe Joyce, but a question I would ask you, where you see Joe Joyce matching up against Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk, I know he's already fought Usyk in the amateurs, but in the pro game, what do you think would be a tougher matchup for Joyce? Would that be Fury, or do you think it'd be Usyk?
Fury is the toughest match out there for anyone, and Joyce is the toughest match for Fury. That's my view on it. I think a lot of people read into the Usyk-Joyce fight. It's more just to be like, yeah, but he's already beaten him in the amateurs. He beats him with bigger gloves and fewer rounds. Okay, so you give Joe Joyce 12 rounds, right? Bearing in mind he knocked out Joe Parker in the 11th. He can get it done late, right? You give him 12 rounds, you give him smaller gloves, you give him Alexander Usyk in front of him, he will close him down. Derek Chisora was able to close Alexander Usyk down. He's a pressure fighter. What is Joe Joyce? He's the biggest pressure fighter in the heavyweight division. He would get to him, look, in my opinion, and I'll get a lot of stick for this, company man and all of that, but I just think he'd drown him. I would believe that regardless of who I work for. He's too big. He'd take him to hell.
Absolutely. You mentioned earlier about him holding that WBO Interim belt, and I remember I spoke to Shane off camera before, and he was talking, I was like, it's a bit of a risk fighting someone like Zhang, where he's got that WBO Interim. He's in line for a world title shot. Is that a testament to Joe Joyce, where he's like, you know what? I could sit and wait. I don't want to do that. I want to get in there with, a big puncher and someone like Zhang, who's a very, very, very testable.
He takes the hard route, and I think the public are warming to him. It feels like out there is a collective will from everyone to see Joe Joyce do well. People are getting disappointed with everything in the heavyweight division, but Joe Joyce is the one. He got me there. He did the thing, and he did it by the shoe. Really good. Well done, Wally. Well done, Wally Downs. Very good, actually, that. But yeah, there is a collective will for Joe Joyce to just do well. He's such a nice guy. You saw the clip the other day where he was trying to lay into his opponent and say what he was going to do. He ended up saying he'd like warm him up. I mean, that's not a particularly big threat, but people love Joe Joyce, and yeah, look, he's on his way to the top of the division. He just needs the fights to get there. Why is he taking on such a risk? Because he's 37 years old. He can't mess about. You can't tick over, really. You've got to take good fights. You've got to keep yourself going. These training camps as well. He could get old overnight. You just never know. So he's got to keep it going at a high level.
Like you just said about keeping it going at a high level. Keeping active is the number one key thing for boxers, but keeping active with key opposition is also really key as well. Would you agree, where you look at guys like, and this isn't, I don't want to call him out or disrespect him here, but obviously look at Yarde, where he didn't fight for a year when he fought Beterbiev, and he's still put in a great fight against Beterbiev, but just imagine what he could have done where, he was fighting, top level competition for that year, where he had, two fights in that year before he fought Beterbiev. So it also shows, would you say, it's the importance that Joyce is fighting guys like Zhang before he has, if he gets through it, then he has a Fury fight or an Usyk fight?
Yeah, I mean, look, with Yarde, it's a different situation. You get yourself to mandatory slot. I think they've wanted to arrange fights, but things have just worked out against him. Beterbiev got injured, so he ended up having to wait even longer, and then he got out in Telford, but these things happen. There was a fight I remember along the journey of Anthony Yarde. I think it was meant to be before he took on Kovalev. He was meant to fight Mehdi Amar. Now, Mehdi Amar was a guy that had taken Alexander Gvozdyk the distance. I think he took him the distance, but he gave him a good fight anyway. And that was the perfect bridge between who he had been fighting and Kovalev up there. But Amar pulled out, and that wasn't great. And that would have been a great developmental fight for Yarde. But look, Yarde will be back. He showed a great fight against Beterbiev. With Joyce, he's a lot older. He's 37, and he's just got to be up there fighting. There's a lot of great fights out there. He's got to keep getting his name out there to the public, and Zhang's perfect.
Absolutely. What would you think would be, next for Joyce after this? Is it got to be that Wembley Stadium fight with Fury, in the summer? Is that what, that's what's over on everyone's lips, would you say?
I don't know. I can't predict Tyson Fury. I want to see Tyson Fury fighting because he is the best heavyweight in the world for me, and I can't wait to see his next fight. With Joe Joyce, I think he's any of these guys, he could fight them. Usyk's got Dubois problems in front of him, it looks like. But there's so many great fights with Joe Joyce involved. You put him on the other side of, say it was Joyce versus Dillian Whyte. What a great fight that is, you know. Joyce versus Joshua. Obviously, Joshua named him as one of his fighters that he wants to fight. Let's see. I don't know what will be next, but I'm sure Queensbury and Frank will sort him out.
Imagine we got Dubois versus Joyce too for the undisputed titles.
You say it sort of tongue in cheek. You laugh, but Daniel Dubois got a chance against Alexander Usyk. He and this isn't me picking Dubois to win. I'm making a case for him. He is bigger, he is younger, he hits harder. Usyk doesn't fly through these fights without getting tagged. He's normally a bit marked up. So if Daniel Dubois hits him, he'll know about it. So you could lead to that scenario. And Joe Joyce could well have some belts as well. It could be a big rematch. I know it's one that Frank's talked about before, doing it at Arsenal, that sort of thing. It could be huge.
Well, that definitely would be huge. And it would be a bit mental for it to sort of all come around like that. Dev Sahni, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, mate. Always a pleasure catching up. You know, it's always enjoyable. Thank you for your time, mate. Massively appreciate it. Top man. Thank you.